Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, because earlier today we saw a big wick to the downside. However, we are still just trading inside this falling wedge pattern. Now, I will get into this pattern in just a second, but first I want to start off with the Bitcoin CME gap, because over the weekend we did have a CME gap at around 96,000. And right now we just opened this new candle here on the daily time frame at exactly this 96K level. So this CME gap is already filled here, and that is not something that we will have to worry about throughout the week. Now, besides that, on this 4-hour time frame, we are still seeing this bullish divergence play out in the charts, which is when you have lower lows in the Bitcoin price and higher lows in the RSI momentum indicator. And yes, even with this big wick below the bullish divergence, this is technically still just active because we didn't get a candle close below that trend line, and that is the invalidation. So either a candle close below this descending trend line or a close below this ascending trend line in the RSI. So for now, I am still simply expecting either some choppy sideways price action or potentially some bullish momentum until this thing actually gets invalidated. Now, getting to this falling wedge pattern then, this is actually a bullish bias pattern, so it is simply more likely to break out to the upside than to the downside, although of course it is not a guarantee. Now, in the case that it does confirm candle closes above this descending trend line, that would confirm the breakout, and currently this level of resistance is sitting at about 96.9K in the Bitcoin price. Now, if we actually do break out to the upside, it would activate this price target at about 102,000. So I would be targeting this 102K level in that case. One last thing with regards to this falling wedge pattern, the point of invalidation for the entire pattern altogether is if we actually just get a candle close below this descending line of support, because then we aren't looking at this falling wedge anymore. It is morphing into something different. So for now, that's all I wanted to share about this falling wedge pattern here. And I am expecting some more volatility to come back into the market. We had a relatively chill weekend here, basically Bitcoin just chopping sideways, not much really going on there. But now heading into this new week, I am expecting volatility to come back. And again, like I said, I do think it is more likely that we are going to get a short-term move to the upside, potentially to around this price target at 102K. Zooming out a bit to this higher time frame, my position here is actually exactly the same as it has been for a couple of weeks at this point, which is basically that more broadly speaking, so long as we're not getting candle closes above 107K, I am not really expecting a massive move to the upside for Bitcoin. So basically, we're just trading in this range between 107 and 89,000 in the Bitcoin price. So again, for now, not too much has changed there. And yes, even if we get a move up to 102,000, I am still just expecting more chop for Bitcoin until we actually confirm those candle closes above 107K. Apart from that, if I'm just looking at the broader support and resistance levels for Bitcoin, currently, we're trading right on top of this big level of support, sitting from 96 all the way down to 95,000 in the Bitcoin price. And in terms of resistance to the upside, we do have this line of resistance sitting at 97.5K, with above that this bigger level of resistance from 99 up to 100,000. Next, let's take a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map. Notice how we just wicked to the downside and grabbed a bunch of liquidity there. And on this high time frame, it is also important to take note of the fact that we have some liquidity at 92.3K as well as liquidity as low as about 86,000 in the Bitcoin price. And this is also why on this daily time frame, like I said, I want to see those candle closes above 107K. Now, if we really just keep chopping here for a couple of weeks, at some point I am going to expect a new move to the top of this range once again. And then if we get to the top of the range, we'll see when we get there what the situation is like. For now, it is really just looking like some consolidation for Bitcoin before a potential next move to the upside. And yes, for now, guys, I do still hold the belief that we are going to make new all-time highs for Bitcoin, but I am not trading based off of that. I'm actually trading based off of the lower time frames, looking for moves like this, potentially capturing this short-term move to the upside, and then from there either closing out that trade or riding it to the upside if it actually continues from there. So at least that is how I am personally trading. For me, the momentum doesn't matter whether it is bullish or bearish. I'm going to be longing and shorting based off of the setups that I see in the charts. And that is something important to remember, guys. For me, it doesn't really matter that much where the top is actually going to come in. If, for example, this was already the top and from now on we're only going to see downside, for me personally, it wouldn't make that much of a difference because I would just be closing out my spot in profits at about 89K. If we, for example, get those weekly candle closes below this, I would just be closing out my spot positions and shorting that move to the downside. Now, let's take a look at the 2-week Bitcoin liquidation heat map. Again, we just took out a big pocket of liquidity to the downside on that wick there. And right now, we have actually left some liquidity to the downside as low as about 94.1K, 94.2K, roughly speaking. Again, liquidity at around 92K, but there is also a bunch of liquidity to the upside. For example, at 100K, 103,000, and then even some liquidity at 106.7K. So that is something to take note of. And these are some potential short-term price targets for Bitcoin in the case that we break out to the upside on this lower time frame setup that I showed you guys earlier in the video. Do keep in mind that this is, of course, not financial advice. I'm simply telling you what I'm seeing in the charts and what I'm doing in the markets, and you can do with that information what you like. Either way, this has been today's market update. I think next week is going to be very interesting here on the lower time frames, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you don't miss any of these important update videos that I post every single day here. But regardless, if you do end up subscribing or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.